Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate
literature
Final Fantasy podcast. Yeah, I was going to say Kazushige Nojima fan cast, but then I couldn't. It just stuck in my throat. I am your host, Kaleb.
I am Joe.
And today, guys, if you are, if you just download us, you don't even look at what you're downloading, you just do it. Thank you. But we are reviewing Traces of Two Paths, so I also apologize in addition to thanking you. This is Kazushige Nojima, scenario writer for Final Fantasy VII's most recent book for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It is taking place, I believe it's just right after Remake ends, because it's them in like the field. Right?
Yeah,
and
it is.
In Rebirth, that section took, 10 seconds. But in this book, of course, it's 360 pages of beef, and took more like 10 hours.
I don't think it was beef, but
It was whatever they put in beef that's not beef that makes it, it's like the filler in beef.
I have a feeling I know why this book was written. Now, I haven't looked up anything on this book at all, but I have a feeling I know why it was written, because I watched the making of Remake video that came out before Rebirth. Or no, maybe it was the making of Rebirth. It was like a 4-part series that Square Enix actually put out. It was like a marketing material. Okay. And it had some interviews. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly which ones. It had some interviews with someone, and they were basically saying that they were surprised by the fan feedback of Final Fantasy VII Remake, that the fans thought, or some fans thought, I didn't think this, that Tifa and Aerith didn't like each other.
Really?
Yeah. And so that they spent a lot of time while making Rebirth, excuse me. Okay, so it must have been a Rebirth video. They spent a lot of time making Rebirth so that they would have scenes together in which they were interacting, and so that they would basically like squash that idea that they didn't like each other, I guess. That that doesn't surprise me that like a bunch of Japanese dudes writing anime girls are not writing super fleshed out characters, and maybe that doesn't not really have much to do with the plot of Remake, or the scope of Remake, so they're not going to have them be like super friendly and friends. But that's what I'm forced into in this book, which is really, you're saying it's beef, but really the amount of time they're actually in the field,
it's spam
or camping out. There's not much time put into that section at all.
No, yeah, it's weird. I'm going to say it up front. I don't dislike the book. I thought it was fine, and it did kind of get me in the Final Fantasy VII mood.
Sure.
That doesn't mean it was easy to read, though. Like, I was just like, oh, man, these guys, like, I'm like, you guys, I don't know, maybe it's just a Japanese thing, but, like, you guys think about stuff, like, a lot, man. Like, you don't just go do stuff, Like, you're like, well, I wonder what this person's doing right now. I wonder what this person's thinking right now. It's like, dude, I spend like almost no time thinking about that kind of shit. And these guys are just so introspective.
Is there any way for you to give me something specific when it comes to what you're trying to say right now? Because I'm a little lost.
I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of like, in this book, there's a lot of moments of like characters thinking about what other characters are thinking about. Like, oh, I wonder what Jesse thinks about this, or like, I don't know. It just seems
okay.
It just seems like there's a lot of internal dialogue, and like more than I would expect from like myself. I don't know.
I think one of the funny tropes that's going on here in this book. First off, it's a giant flashback book. So yeah, they're wandering across the plains for the book, at least for the first 2 sections of the book, and they're like chit-chatting at night about their past. And so, kind of like a Tales from the Crypt show or some sort of TV show where it's like the characters talk for a second, and then we see like the actual story that you're in there for takes up the main bulk of it, which is whatever they're talking about. And then the narrative switches over to that point of view and occasionally touches back in with the characters. So it's that kind of flashbacky structure. But the funny trope that's always in those is that the detail in which it goes into is nothing like the amount of detail you would get when someone's telling you a story.
I know, it's crazy.
So someone's telling you a story, they're going to be like, they're going to hit the broad strokes and maybe emphasize things and like perform certain things. But when you are reading a book, suddenly it becomes like this novel and it's like, oh, she sat there for 45 minutes and went into great detail about her internal thoughts and motivations through these things. And it's like, it's just one of those funny things. I think that's pretty common with this sort of flashbacky structure.
Yeah, I guess that's more what I was trying to... that's what because I remember complaining about that. Like, I'm like, what? She's telling a story from like years ago, and she's remembering what she thought about what other people were thinking about. I'm like, who does this, man? Like what are you, a computer?
Yeah,
like,
it's funny. It's one of those point of view things. So
yeah, because it's like it's...
My favorite thing is when a movie is doing that and the camera is showing a perspective that the character never would have seen. So
yeah, that makes even less sense.
It then becomes the filmmaker telling the story instead of the character telling their story in flashback, which you would assume would be from their point of view.
Yeah.
Which is something that is in storytelling that is one of those kind of more advanced pieces of craft, which is kind of mastering point of view, and like who's telling the story, whether or not the story is being told from an omniscient perspective, in other words, like point of view of God, or if it's third person, but it's like it's third person plural. I can't remember the exact terminology, but there's like third person where it'll cut chapter to chapter. Like Wheel of Time does this, and it's actually like really solid at doing this. It never breaks from its structure that I know of. Is that each chapter is from a very specific person's point of view, and there's no other point of view brought in. It's only from their point of view. So you'll have two characters who maybe you know them because of previous chapters or previous books talking in that chapter, but you're not getting in their head. You're only getting in the head of the person who is the chapter is from.
Yeah, that's how Game of Thrones works too.
Yeah, but there are other books where it's almost like the storyteller has sat you down on their lap and they're going to tell you all of the things. And while this person was thinking this person was thinking this. Obviously, his point of views. I was actually confused. I didn't know that the last section of the book was from a different book. Cause so I was kind of bad when it went from like third person to first person.
Yeah.
in the book, which is always like, I don't know, something kids basically figure out about sixth grade when it comes to writing. And it's like, why is this happening? But then it's like, oh, it doesn't even belong in this book. So
yeah, it was kind of random. I was thinking like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be like, you know, some cool reveal at the end. Like, I wonder who it is. And it's like, oh, it's nobody. It's just someone from something else.
Someone who was there before.
I was hoping it was going to be like, I don't know, some like Turk or somebody that we knew and like their backstory. But it wasn't.
Yeah, so I definitely had those thoughts too. I'm like, no one's sitting down and going into this much detail about all these things.
Yeah.
So like clearly it's set up so that we could go almost like a movie, because like in a movie you could fill in the images that the character, even though they're telling the story, would never see, but because you're an audience movie and it's just a movie, you do have to see a set. Like the characters are standing in a room somewhere. And that all has to be filled out just visually, but you can believe in that moment that that person never told the details of exactly how something looked in a flashback. So I don't know.
Yeah, it just seemed like extreme. And then, everyone's like, oh, come on, tell us more. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah, I guess we could kind of get a little bit more into specifics. Tifa tells her story first. And her story goes nowhere for like 80 pages. I would say that. But there is a flash forward, and they're back. You know, everybody like Red 13 is listening in or something like that, and Barrett's listening in. They're like, "Oh, please give us more." give us more of this story. And I'm like, nothing is happening right now in this story.
Yeah.
Why? Like, there was no cliffhanger before this happened. That was definitely like for the beginning of the book. I was cautious because it's Kazushige Nojima, who gave us some. Now, we read the unofficial translations because the translations were not officially
they
made.
weren't done yet. Yeah,
they were not done by the time we got to them. So we did the unofficial translations of his previous Final Fantasy VII books. But
yeah, because the only one there was like one that was made into a little short film, right, or like a little anime, and that was episode
Denzel.
Yeah, and then I think everything else was just translated.
Yeah,
from what but now I think it's all. I believe it's all out.
They're all out
because I saw Turks.
The Final Fantasy X 2 book is not.
Okay,
I think that's his. I want to double check
God.
that before I. Let me double check that before I put that out to the world here. Final Fantasy X book.
Also, to note, the translator for this book was the same translator for the 15 book.
Okay,
so
he does a good job.
Yeah. So the difference in quality between those two books, you can only place on the author at this point because it was translated by the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Price of Eternity. Who wrote this thing? Why is it not coming up? Hold on. This is some good Googling. You got any notes on that first section here while I'm figuring this out?
Yeah, I said it was set in the 60s. There's a nice scene where Cloud saves Tifa's cat. 20 pages in. There's a lot of meandering. I wrote down that it's choppy. I liked how she met Zongan, her master. I think that was kind of cool. And he was kind of a zany character for like 2 seconds in Rebirth.
It is, in fact, Kazushige Nojima that gave us Final Fantasy X 2.5.
What? Man, this guy.
So, yeah, that's why I was having trouble. Like, at the beginning, I was like, oh, no, this is going to be bad, right? And it's going to be like a professional version of bad. It was not nearly as bad as I was afraid of. I think out of all the books, the spin-off books for these games that we've read, this is probably the second best one.
Yeah.
The Final Fantasy 15 one, which I don't believe was written by Nojima, but don't quote me on that.
It wasn't.
That one was probably the best one. It was just, there were actual stories in there.
Yeah, that one was actually good.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, if we're talking about like video game spin-off novel,
yeah,
if we're grading on that curve, it was pretty good.
I mean, it's not like required reading.
No. So I put so the stories are Tifa from growing up in Nibelheim to the disaster there with Sephiroth and her father and everything like that. To then going into emergency surgery after the wound that she got, to then having to pay medical debt off for that surgery, and then picking up a job through the doctor who performed the surgery. Her son gets her a job selling hot buns.
Yeah, Tifa's hot underage buns.
Hot buns. And
so doughy.
Then the person who owns the hot buns business, who goes by Pops, that he's exploiting her because she's pretty in order to sell more hot buns. And because Tifa, in her martial arts training, she's looking at making hot buns and selling them very quickly as like a new version of martial arts. She often akins making the hot buns and really everything she has to do that's like a physical task to her training with Zongan, I believe was his name.
Yeah, Zongan style.
And learning of the Zongan style art, and like, it goes into detail earlier on about her training in that with Zongan's books, and then Zongan himself, and then having to spar with her dad.
Yeah,
because she couldn't find anyone else to spar with, and then eventually she's working hot buns, and someone else needs a surgery that's very similar to what she had. This is such dumb. that part was stupid.
Yeah, wasn't it? It was the
Merle,
the chick with the mega fro that like lives in that place with the horrible doors in the middle of the city.
So Merle needs the surgery as well. That's where she meets Merle. Apparently, Merle like. Tifa's there to help convince Merle that the surgery is going to be fine. And then Merle disappears. Tifa's like, what happened to Merle? We don't know. And then Tifa, while she's selling her hot buns, sells 20 hot buns to a fat fuck who wants 20 hot buns. And of course, I think which one's the fat one? Is it Biggs?
It's Wedge.
It's Wedge. Okay.
Yeah.
It was Wedge. Turns out to be Wedge. And Wedge with Biggs and Jesse. And so she kind of like briefly makes friends with them, but when it kind of like they're already in Avalanche, and when the Avalanche stuff, like when they start getting kind of found out by Shinra and chased around, they break ties because they don't want, the 17-year-old or 6, I don't know how old she is when this happens. They don't want this young girl to have any trouble or anything. And so Tifa, who has friends briefly, loses her friends there. And then I can't remember how she finds Merle again, but Merle is able to then get her back in contact with Jesse and them and get her friends back. And then how did she get into the seventh heaven? Do you remember that?
Yeah, so let me see.
Oh, yeah, there's a presentation about the live stream.
Yeah, we got the hippie bullshit in this book as well. I wrote down something akin to that.
Anyway, somehow Tifa...
Yeah, it's like someone that
I
knows
think Merle might actually have gotten Tifa the job at 7th.
Yeah, because like so they're trying to like revitalize it because the owner's like old as hell.
Yeah, and then the owner has a heart attack, and then Tifa is like thinking about taking over. Of course, she meets Barrett there with Barrett's daughter, and they are homeless and they're just hanging out. And Barrett apparently is so big and scary and black that he's scaring off he's scaring off all the other customers. But Barrett's like, oh, I want to thank the person, for giving us a home, but then we're gonna lose our home because the seventh heaven is it's under like the person who owned it was behind on making payments to it, and so the landlord needed this is real, by the way. The landlord needed the 140,000 gil or something in order to kind of catch up on payments. And if Tifa, Barrett, and the others who wanted to see the seventh heaven, prosper, they had to come up with that money in order for them to get the seventh heaven bar working. Tifa's one day in the seventh heaven bar is paying way more than she's making selling her hot buns at the bun cart.
Selling them hot buns on the streets.
Selling hot buns on the streets.
Working the streets.
And then she's like, okay, I actually have the money because I've been saving up to pay off this medical debt. She goes back and someone has stolen the money.
Yeah.
And then she has this inkling feeling that it's Rakesh, or Rakesh. I don't know how to say his name. No. I'm just reading the names. Rakesh is the doctor's son who got her the job and who was very adamant that she stay at that job, basically. And then she goes after Rakesh. They go just because that's where she figures that money was taken. And of course, that's when Rakesh is being he's being threatened by Pops, who turns out to be this secret, local gang mob boss guy.
Yeah.
The whole time. And then Rakesh gives Tifa the money back after being threatened. I think Tifa punches him pretty good. And then the doctor and Rakesh apparently were charging her 3 times what they should have, and then eventually just forgive the debt. And then Tifa is able to save the seventh heaven bar. then her and Barrett. Barrett's able to get into Avalanche, which is what he was there for all along. And they're able to, from the Seventh Heaven bar, kind of like run the bar, and also and Barrett's kind of the bouncer there, and they're also able to work in Avalanche. Is that pretty much the broad strokes?
Yeah, pretty much. I do like how they canonize the folios, I think, because they're like the little pamphlets. Because remember in the games, the folios are like little booklets you get that like teach you special moves. Mm-hmm. And Zangan actually hands them out to Tifa as she gets stronger. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. They made that canon now. I like how she kind of joined a gang pretty much. I also wrote down here I'd live in the Sector 8 slums if I got them Tifa steam buns and Tifa showers. And now look, I realized that she was young in this, but guess what? It's a flashback, so I was young too.
Yeah, this game came out in '97. I was 5 years old.
Yeah, I was 6, dude. Come on. I do like the freaking. I kind of liked seeing Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge. Good God, those are like right next to each other in my notes. That was kind of cool, bringing stuff in. There was like one thing I liked about this. I mean, here's one point about this book. There's a main difference between Tifa and Aerith. Like, one sells delicious hot buns, and the other one sells flowers. So that's all you need to know about who you should pick in this universe. And there, I was surprised there was a straight up F-bomb in this book. There were multiple.
There were 4, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that other than FF16 or Type 0, I guess.
Yeah.
But, or, well, okay, there's 3 other options.
Yeah, and then Stranger Paradise.
But that was kind of surprising. One thing I did like, though, is I feel like this book did a good job of kind of instilling the fear that Shinra puts on, like, the locals, you know? Because, like, there's a lot of people in this.
It gave us a good glimpse into the world and the power structures that be, and like, what Shinra... I know you get some of that in the games, but the Shinra relationship with the rest of the world a little bit more.
Yeah.
And how it affects daily life.
Yeah, because, like, there's a part where, you know, Zangan comes into the village and the villagers don't trust him because he's saying anti-Shinra things, and they think he's like a plant from Shinra to see if there's any sympathizers for that kind of thought to then take him out. And I'm like, man, that's for you to think that's what this guy is there doing. Like, that's got to be pretty messed up. Like, that not only had to have happened, but has to be commonplace in this universe, which is kind of crazy because it's a power company. Like, dude,
Yeah.
the freaking, it's like a Rocky Mountain power just coming down. It's like nuts, man. Like, we're building a coal plant here.
Power's out. When is it going to be back on? It'll be back on when we say it's back on.
Yeah, exactly. I do also like... I like that we seeing the Nibelheim incident from Aerith's perspective and Sephiroth and all that was kind of cool. I know we've seen that like 9 different times.
Yeah.
From different perspectives.
But I mean, we got the dots. I guess the whole point of this thing was to see Tifa from that incident to how'd she get into the slums.
Yeah.
And how'd she get into Seventh Heaven. So
yeah, because if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense.
From the fanboy perspective, you want to know those details. And, you get to learn about real estate in Gar.
And hot buns. They also had some pinball machine lore, because remember in the original game, you get to like
we're going to put a pinball machine in there.
Yeah.
For the memory of that person whose name I forgot.
Exactly. I'd say. And I liked how Merle or whatever, she kind of gives a more realistic look at Avalanche, because like they are kind of eco-terrorists, and this is my least favorite part about the remake was how they blow up the reactor, but it wasn't actually them. I thought that was cheap and crap.
Yeah,
because like, you know, these guys are doing some pretty radical and crazy things, and yeah, they might be, you know, the force for good overall, but I feel like it cheapens it when you make it so good versus evil. And Merle in this had a lot of like, she's like, well, Avalanche, they're not that great either. They do all sorts of crazy stuff. And I thought that was cool. And I feel like that comes across better in a book.
I would like to point out page 12, example of meandering, purposeless writing. I'm going to read this section. When lunch was over and they'd left the pool, the boys talked about how nice it had been to eat outside. That was a fun picnic. We ought to plan another one soon. How does that count as a picnic? We barely stepped foot outside the village. There's nothing going on. Look at that.
Yeah, that's that meandering.
Meandering. There's a lot of meandering, I think, for the first section of the book, because until Tifa starts selling her hot buns on like page 80.
Yeah,
like,
and from then on, it was just...
And then it was hot buns.
Yeah, I had to like tug on my
The
shirt
amount
collar.
of times that they also wrote the word hot buns.
Yeah.
From translator Stephen Kohler, who could not think of another way of saying hot buns.
Yeah.
Like
maybe he
sandwich.
just would not.
Because don't they? It's a hot bun with sandwiches. Like it's like a pita bread thing or something, right?
Yeah. It's like I was almost thinking some kind of like freaking soup bowl, but it's not soup. I don't know.
No, yeah.
Something. Man.
I thought it was hot buns, and then you cut it, and then you put stuff in it.
Yeah.
Which I think is just called a sandwich. Like.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Anyway.
I was thinking about hot buns in a different way.
Page 21. Who would ever think this? Hold on. I didn't recheck this after I made these notes. She'd worry about how the other villages perceived her, the lazy Lockhart girl, too uncaring to go out looking for her poor lost cat. What neighbor would ever be thinking about someone else's lost cat and how why isn't the girl looking for her cat for days on end?
Yeah, it's like, dude, it's a cat. They're not even domesticated. They just kind of show up.
But also, like, yeah, give one good search. Oh, you never looked for your cat? That would be different than, like, why aren't you still looking for your cat?
Yeah.
I think it would have to be like, well, I assume the cat's dead or gone.
Yeah, I mean, there are monsters in this world, like, everywhere, so.
Speaking of. Page 91. The way Rakesh spoke reminded Tifa once more of the stories of traffickers in the city. It was a phenomenon she'd had a vague, nagging fear of ever since she heard about it as a child. Something akin to monsters and ghosts, yet at the same time, so much more real. Those tales of men who tricked children into lives of hard labor had continued to make her nervous well into her teenage years. I have two problems with that. One, they never talk about sex trafficking, which I believe would be for her as the young girl that people are eyeing on, probably much more of a threat than going into labor. And they never once. They talk about these trafficking people, but it's always for labor. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Not everyone wants some hard labor.
And then the other thing was like something akin to monsters and ghosts, yet at the same time so much more real. I went, monsters and ghosts aren't real in this world.
Yeah.
There's literally later when Aerith finds a monster that's been like killed, and they call them monsters or creatures or something like that, and I'm like, I run into a monster about every 5 seconds in Final Fantasy VII. I cannot believe that monsters are not considered real.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was funny. Like a funny little, I don't know if that's a mistranslation or if that was really just laziness. I don't know.
Well, and again, that's another example of like, okay, well, you got to remember that she's telling this story years and years later, and she's remembering thinking about those very specific things. Like, and thought that it would be wise to bring up, but it's way more real than monsters. It's like, dude, this is like, but after Remake 1, you know how many monsters we've killed? Like thousands and thousands of monsters.
But in the mind of the little girl, the girl's never like, what are you talking about? They have a posting in Midgar, in the city. There's like the neighborhood watch is there to like make sure that nothing goes bump in the night, including monsters. That's explained later in the Aerith section. So
yeah.
You think out in the country they didn't have any monsters in the Final Fantasy VII world in Nibelheim?
Yeah, man.
Come on.
Middle of nowhere out there.
I just thought that was funny too.
Yeah. So episode Tifa, or Traces of Tifa. I think it was the better of the two.
It had more going on, I think. Well, maybe not. I guess the Aerith did have a lot of stuff going on, but there was definitely more of like a beginning, middle, and end story. The Aerith stuff was a little bit more like recollections. I don't know. I guess we can get into the Aerith section.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Part of it could just be because I like Tifa more. I don't know.
I think she's a more well-developed character in Final Fantasy VII overall. Although it was interesting getting to look into Aerith's kind of the way that her... And I haven't seen this so far in the Final Fantasy media, is like how as a Cetra or as an agent, does she speak to the planet? And you do get that in a little bit more detail. Like they clarify that, I guess. They figure out the magic system of the book a little, or the story a little bit more.
Yeah.
The Aerith section. So the Aerith section goes from it details her and her birth mother escaping from Hojo's lab experiments.
Yeah.
Her mother is apparently has to shoot something into herself, like some medication. She runs out, and that's why she dies. But her mother's weak, and then there's I think his name is Faz. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Him and her mother clearly have a thing going, or at least Faz thinks they have a thing going. And then Faz, who is like just a Midgard or a Shinra worker, gets her out. He gets her out and puts her into a shipping crate and gets her into the train. The train arrives in Midgar, and then Aerith and her mother, who are stuck in this box, basically have to then escape out of there. And when they escape, they're pursued by people, and they detail like how like slapped around they are in this box, like this little girl and her weak mother. But they get out there, and then of course the section that we see in Rebirth follows after that, where they actually end up in Midgar. Her mother's dying. Aerith is looking for a doctor, which is a really sad scene in the game.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I think this book came out before Rebirth.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
And that was in Rebirth, right? That scene.
Yeah, that scene was in Rebirth.
It's sad in the game, but it's absolutely hilarious in the book. No,
no, it's not. It's not. That's actually one of the scenes for Rebirth that's like it's new and it's like pretty hard. It's a pretty heavy scene. She's going around looking for the doctor, and then it kind of details how she's found by, not Ifalna. What's the mother's name? Mom 2.
Shoot, man.
Name. We see her a lot in Remake and Rebirth.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Elmira, that's
Elmira.
what it is.
They're so close in names, Ifalna and Elmira.
I know. I forgot for a second who was who.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Details Elmira picking her up and knowing that Shinra's kind of after Aerith and hiding her as her own daughter, and then the local mob boss's daughter's name, Aerith accidentally, as a little like 6-year-old child, takes the wrong name, takes Rana as her name, or Rona, Corona as her name, and then she takes Corona as her name. This gets her in trouble with Marcellus, who is the actual Rona's brother and the mob boss's son, and like with an orphanage, he's saying, she stole that's not her name. Her name's actually Aerith, because he overhears that from his father. And then basically that causes like a big hubbaloo about like what her actual name is. She's hiding her name, and then eventually someone finds, like Shinra finds out where she is, and then they come and they're like, okay, we know what happened. We're gonna let her live like a normal life with you here, and in exchange, you know, if something weird happens, you got to let us know because we're looking for the promised land. Like, we're true believers or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of their MO. So they, instead of taking Aerith back, which they totally could do, they just kind of secure the area a little more.
Yeah.
And so just kind of keep her safe. So it's almost like it's like Final Fantasy as a whole. It's like the illusion of freedom. Like, you think you can go everywhere, but you can't. So they do that to her. I also wrote down, like, what's with the Aerith was like ashamed of her sick mom needing her meds, and I said, what is with the medicine shaming in Final Fantasy, dude? Like, whole sections of freaking Kingsglaive about that guy's like pill addiction.
I think it's underlining bits of Japanese culture.
Just liquefied leg bones.
Like, I would probably be popping pills too. Like,
yeah, man. You're like, oh, you're taking another one? It's like, yeah, as prescribed, I'm taking another one.
A light mountain fell on top of it.
Yeah. Might not seem like much, but my leg was broken into a billion pieces.
Yeah, my leg was just like, I was dragging around like a big piece of bacon behind me.
Yeah, like
when I got up. Like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of crazy. There was a section here where while Aerith like first comes home with Elmira, she starts to see she has like visions of talking to her mom. And like at first I was like, oh, it must be in her head. But then it's like, oh no, she's actually talking to her mom. And I'm like, what's the point of her being dead then if she's just going to be here?
That's what the mom says. Okay. She's like, we're all eternal life within the life stream.
Yeah. And then eventually she's like, all right, gotta go. I gotta become an apple tree on the other side of the planet. So yeah, I didn't really dig that because I felt like it kind of cheats death and loss. But then, of course, she does leave. But I don't know. It kind of gives you closure that I don't think Aerith would have gotten, if she would have just died and been gone.
Sure.
So I know it's part of the lore, but nah. And then Elmira, her husband was kind of involved with the local mob thing that's going on. So
yeah, Elmira turns out to be another mob boss. We got another mob boss twist.
Yeah, it's like, how many, dude, it's like everybody in the mob in this.
Yeah, when that happened,
universe?
I was like,
like, come on.
How many
the
times?
Mob?
Like, I already got that the guy selling hot buns all day is apparently a mob boss once a week.
Yeah, yeah. On his day off.
Which was already kind of a tough pill to swallow, but okay. Okay, Kazushige. Okay.
Yeah. And now the mom is a mob boss.
Yes, of course.
So, we also get Sung. He arrives on Aerith's 8th birthday, which makes it kind of creepy that he's like in love with Aerith later on because he's like a fully grown member of.
Yeah, that's a little mess.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. It's a little creepy.
Okay.
And then it starts leading towards like a Godfather style power struggle going on in this section, which you would think would be kind of exciting, but it really sort of wasn't.
Well, that's because the Marcellus, the son grows up. He's way older than I thought he was, considering he was like picking on a little girl who was like 6 years old and was being pulled around by Zed, but he's apparently 30 at the time. No, he's 15, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I screwed that up. There was still a weird age difference that I didn't understand. But I guess I didn't read carefully enough. But she feels, when Marcellus runs away from his father, she feels like something, and then she's like, oh, you'll find him near the wall in Sector 7, I think. And then they do, and then everybody's one of the people who is like informing for Elmira is like freaking out because he thinks, Marcellus's father, whose name has escaped me right now, is gonna come after them because that means that something happened to their son, or where they get their information, or something like that. And then Elmira's like, Aerith, stay here. I'm gonna talk this out. And then Elmira, apparently there was no issue whatsoever. Conflict completely averted, and now Elmira is going to be out of the mob. She gets to, I guess, keep her place, and then Elmira is just Aerith's mom working odd jobs.
Yeah,
for the rest of her up until FF7 Rebirth.
Yeah, I was thinking it was going to be like that Wild Thornberries movie where like the chick has to like tell him why she knows what she knows.
I
can speak to animals. Then she loses her power. Yeah, I had younger siblings, so I watched like a ton of freaking cartoons.
Okay, I don't know that one.
But yeah, I was like, oh man, is she going to lose her power? But then like her power is not even really that impressive. Like it's kind of weird in this.
Well, basically, like she was the mob boss's wife, and I guess took over when after her husband dies, which is another scene of the book. That's another part where Aerith, as a little kid, feels that her husband is dying in a land far away and is trying to get back to his wife.
Yeah.
She tells her, she gets angry at the kid for saying something like that, and then finds out that it was true the next day. Seeing that Aerith obviously has her powers, like this is another manifestation of her powers, which again I think is the cool part about this section of the book, is seeing how Aerith's connection to the live stream actually manifests within her personal life. And then the weird crazy twist at the end is like the guy who helped get her mother out, who was in love with her mother, comes back. When Aerith is going and looking for the church, she runs into him, this Faz guy, and then this Faz guy's like, where did you go? That's so mean of you. I'm in love with you. And he like tries to attack her, and then then he is, what is he, shot? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I think Elmira ends up freaking killing him.
I think Elmira goes to shoot him and misses, and someone else shoots him.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like Shinra guards or something, because they, like we said before, they're kind of like...
They're watching her.
Yeah, they're allowed to live their life, but they're really keeping an eye on her.
Yeah.
Because they need her. And yeah, he ends up like... Old pedo Faz ends up dying, because he thinks Aerith is her mom.
Yeah, so apparently he lost his marbles.
Yeah, something happened.
Something is not right. So that's kind of the big twist there. And then the last book in the book apparently isn't from the book, which now makes sense. We literally looked this up right before the episode. This is actually Final Fantasy VII Remake, Picturing the Past. It's just called Picturing the Past, and I think is what the chapter is called here. And it's about a Shinra, a kid who was like within like the Shinra thing, who remembers Aerith and basically is like doing some soul searching and trying to figure out what happened to her, and then kind of goes down like his dad. What was his dad? Do you remember? I can't remember. His dad worked for Shinra. They were maybe they were one of the guards, or they were one of the medical personnel that was working with Hojo. And then, this kid had like a relationship with Aerith, and he made like a drawing or something, and basically Aerith's powers came out because of something he did. And then, of course, Aerith disappears, and then he is interviewing people that were back during the time that were working there at Shinra. And then he eventually runs into Aerith on the streets.
Yeah. It basically does nothing. It
Yeah,
goes
there's
nowhere.
nothing. Yeah.
Because like the whole time I was thinking like, all right, this has got to be like a major character, and it's just like hiding it. You know, I'm like, who is this? And then it ends, and I'm like, I was like, maybe I'll figure it out over the next few days, and I didn't think about it another time since then. But yeah, like that's pretty much what happens. It's someone that knew Aerith because they played as kids. Yeah, his dad worked in the research area, and like Aerith needed someone to play with, and so he played with her.
The narrator's name is later revealed to be Lonnie. Okay. Apparently that was in the book, but I missed it.
Yeah, and then Aerith. So what Aerith's powers are? She like, since she can sense the live stream so well, she like knows where mega like live stream areas are, and so that's where they're gonna. She just starts drawing those areas, and that's where they want to put the Mako reactors, so they can get the best bang for their buck, pretty much. So that's the whole point of that story, pretty much, is a guy who kind of feels bad about his past, going around trying to find Aerith again. Then he finds her. She claims to not be Aerith, but then I guess he made like some weird face at her one time when they were kids, and then Aerith makes that face back at him. So then he's like, "Oh, I think she does remember it's me," but then it just ends. So, yeah, I mean, I like Final Fantasy VII, and I like the remake, rebirth, and all of that. So I didn't hate this book, but I do think a lot of it is unnecessary and very meandery, and the whole concept of it is just nutso. Like, oh, let me tell you a story. It's like, dude, you are an awful storyteller. Both of you are just terrible at this. It's like way too much detail, way too much stuff. Like,
yeah, it goes off in weird tangents.
How do you remember this?
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair to the book, we are forced to read this book. We are not picking this up because we are interested in reading this book.
Yeah.
No one ever recommended this book to me, which, books take some effort. So I was waiting for this tangent. Schweiss, I've now bought reading glasses because of this book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was like, man, and I've had this for years. I'm like, why does it feel like I can't pay attention to things? Why does it feel like when I pick up a book, I can't I read the 7th Harry Potter book the day it came out, the entire book. And that's a big book. Like, if it was in normal adult print, it would probably be like a 450-page book.
Yeah,
like it's
pretty solid.
It's a pretty big, solid-sized book. And I was like, but I remembered things, so I know I was reading carefully and slowly and with characters' voices inside my head. I wasn't just trying to speed read it like I learned how to do in college, where you just kind of like, I do 2 fingers and I rock them back and forth, and I can kind of go down the page pretty quickly and just get chunks of words. Like, it's not going to be the most detailed things in the world, but you can kind of glean information out of a book or out of an article that way pretty fast and figure out if it's like something useful to you or not.
Yeah.
So it's a different type of reading. Like, I was like, I used to do that. I used to like really read books, and like I'm trying to listen to Way of Kings, and it's kind of slow, and I'm like, sometimes like the narrator really affects how much you enjoy a book.
Who narrates that one?
Same people who narrated The Wheel of Time.
Oh, really?
Stuff, yeah. But the thing was, I physically read the Wheel of Time books that I actually read. I remembered better, and I read the first one, half of the second one, then I found the CDs, and then I read the 5th one. So I read those ones. I read them, and it was like a different experience, and I just was like, man, why could I read before, and I feel like I can't read anymore? And I'm like, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, oh, maybe it has something to do with my migraines. My migraines have screwed up my vision. I went to the eye doctor like 2 years ago, and I got, there were such mild prescriptions. The guy's like, you don't need to buy glasses, is basically what he told me. He's like, you have an astigmatism, but you don't need to buy glasses. And totally useless eye doctor, by the way. Yeah. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to look, because we had to read this book. I started reading it, and I'm like, oh, man, how am I, I was trying to read this a lot faster. And I was like, oh, I gotta do 30 pages a day or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh man, this is like, I'm hurting, like I'm straining my eyes reading this thing. And I do occasionally read, if I'm really into something, I can read something, but I'm like, it doesn't matter if I'm really into this or not. Like I should be able to read this. And then I'm like, I'm gonna go. Maybe it has something to do with my vision. Maybe it's the astigmatism. I know that last time the eye doctor was like, yeah, some reading glasses might help make some things easier for you because you're slightly farsighted. I got like the weakest reading glasses I could get on the shelf. I pulled up like a book. I went to Walmart to do this. I grabbed a book with the smallest print that I could find at Walmart, so I could compare and contrast.
Yeah,
like the different like levels. Dude, it made it a breeze. I had to read this book basically. I read the first like 100 pages, kind of how I was going to do it, and then I got super busy with crap. And then we were going to have to sit down here and do this. And I was like, oh, crap, I really got to do this. I read like 70 pages in like, 2 hours or something like that. And not even like trying to speed read, not forcing myself. Just my eyes gliding across the page because I had reading glasses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is what I've been missing this entire time. Just some readers to just take the pressure off of my eyes focusing on that book.
Nice.
I cannot believe what a miracle that became. And I'm like, why that eye doctor in Cedar City, who I will never go to again.
Yeah, it's just Craig's doctor.
He was so useless. He didn't explain to me what an astigmatism was. He didn't explain to me how the lenses were going to correct that. He didn't explain to me the difference between like my vision like not working and the astigmatism. I went to the Walmart eye doctor 2 days ago. Just because after this reading glasses thing, I was like, I better go to the eye doctor and see. The guy walks me through the whole process. He checks on my eyes, and then he's like, you have an astigmatism, which means this, this, and this.
Yeah. It just means your eyeball shape isn't.
And then
fit.
he goes, your vision's pretty good. But I know some people when they're watching movies or like going to the movie theater, or if they're a person who shoots guns or something like that, they want their vision to be sharp. My entire growing up until 6 years ago when I started like getting weird vision things, and that was with the migraines too. Like I didn't know the difference between like blurry vision because I just had a migraine, and like it's like sometimes my vision's good, sometimes it's like it's hard to focus. The eye doctor broke it all down for me. He's like, oh, this will correct this. You don't technically need it, but if you suffer with migraines, this might actually help you have less migraines because you're not straining your eyes as much. And then he was like, yeah, the migraines mess with your blood vessels in the back of your eye, so it's normal to not be able to see as well for the next few days after a migraine. If it gets really bad, you'll have to go get special like medication for that. And it's not really something that we can do here. And then I can't believe that the Walmart eye doctor who I paid $70 to see versus the guy who charged my insurance company $300 and has a building with his name on it in Cedar City. The quality of care from the Walmart eye doctor versus that guy, miles apart.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, because the astigmatism thing, it's basically your eyeballs are getting squozed by your eye socket because the shape isn't
something with
totally
the shape.
right. And so like, and you know this, but like if it's like raining and someone has their brights on, like you just can't see a fucking thing, dude. Like
Right.
It's just like I can't see.
Right, but the other eye doctor didn't tell me that there were lenses that would help with that.
Yeah.
He was just like, yeah, it just means blurry vision. I'm like, what am I here to see? And I just remember like trying to ask the eye doctor like pointed questions, and he would give me weird answers. Like, I think eye doctors are just not used to talking to people who've had perfect freaking vision for forever, and don't understand what's happening to them.
Yeah.
Because that was the situation I was in, where I was like, I don't, why?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I see?
Yeah, I mean, mine's like freaking 2040. So like I can drive legally without glasses, but like that test last time when I got renewed, I was like, that was close, man. Like I could barely see that shit. So it's going to be next time I'm going to probably need glasses to drive.
Anyway, it's like,
so I understand, but yeah, that's ridiculous. So I'm glad that this book brought you to that realization, because since I finished this, I kind of got the little itch. I'm like, man, I don't have to play any games right now. Not really. I could actually read a book.
I could read a book that I've wanted to read.
Yeah, that I like chose to read.
And read it. I don't have to listen to it while I'm doing other stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. So like,
which is a different experience.
It is. I really like audiobooks. And if I wasn't so far behind on my podcast, that I would be doing that on my drives.
Yeah.
Once I catch up, I will.
Yeah.
Because I have like freaking like 30 audible books that I haven't read yet.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
I have 2. I restarted The Way of Kings. I'm now 12 hours into it, about where I stopped before.
You thinking about stopping again?
It just stopped dead. Like, it had this bizarre story about these like war area and this prisoner guy who's trying to work his way up in the ranks, while cutting back to some lady also trying to work her way through things. And like this spirit nymph thing. I don't know what the hell it is. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about because I think you've read it, right?
No, I never have.
Oh, you haven't? Okay. Sorry, I don't.
Everybody else read it.
Okay,
but
yeah. It stops dead. It's onto a different character. 12 hours into the audiobook.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, dude, I've read the Mistborn. I've read the Mistborn trilogy. So the 3 main books. I know there's more. Whenever I say I read the Mistborn books, they're like, did you read these ones? I'm like, no. I read the ones called Mistborn.
Those are supplemental.
I didn't read like a Mistborn tale, whatever. Like, I didn't read those. They were good. I listened to those. I didn't read them. They were really good. They were nice and fast paced. And I liked Brandon Sanderson's Wheel of Time books.
Yeah.
I liked those a lot. I thought he really did a good job of kind of, bringing that series back to life and then ending it pretty satisfying.
Yeah, I don't think he's as funny as Robert Jordan, but he did a pretty good job of capturing the essence.
Yeah, and so I was like, I gotta try his magnum opus, right?
Yeah.
He knew it was his magnum opus when he was writing it. He's like, I'm gonna make this really long and really slow and really detailed. And I'm like, everybody tells me it picks up. I'm waiting.
I know.
I restarted it because I was lost. I was like, there's too much crap going. And I got more of it. Obviously, I can't retell it to you like that. I did a just terrible job of saying
I have no idea what's going on.
What was happening, but
you just sold me on not buying it.
It's it's massive. But anyway, speaking of reading, we did have one review.
Oh, nice. On Discord? Or?
On the email.
Okay, I was going to say.
And it was from Steven, so if you got that faster than I do, you should pull it up. But
yeah, I got it right here.
Okay.
So, oh wait, that's the wrong.
You got it right there. Steven, here we go. Got it. I got it. Don't worry, I got it.
Okay.
And the first line is, well, I got through it.
Yeah. Congrats.
I don't think I'm an impatient reader. I live a calm slice of life story, but I struggle to concentrate on this book. Hey, man, go get some readers. Go get some good readers. Actually, I think it's Steven we've met, and does he wear glasses? Am I remembering that right?
I think so. You got to go get better glasses, Steven.
The author seems to love pointless digressions. The characters spend paragraphs wondering what might happen next or wondering what other characters are thinking about. Yeah. Bland day-to-day routines and inner monologues are discussed in great detail, but I rarely felt engaged. Way too much time is spent deeply explaining plot points that just don't matter. Tifa constantly tracks and recalculates her debts to the slum clinic. but the amount of gil and the time needed to earn it are never relevant. We learned so much about, when she said, oh, I have 140,000 gil, I'm like, you do? I remember when that happened, I was like, whoa, that seems like a big number.
Yeah, and because in Rebirth, I feel like you don't have any money at all in that game, or in Remake. I felt like that was one of the problems. So yeah, her hot buns sell, man.
Yeah, learned so much. But you won't go to the district for that kind of thing.
No.
We learned so much about Elmira's husband's contracting business, about the number 2s and the number 3s and all the other families and integral politics, only to have them all die off stage in a Sector 5 turf war. We're told that the streets were red with blood, but Aerith, who was working in Sector 5 the entire time, never even noticed. I also question the use of framing devices in the first 2 stories, constantly cutting back to Tifa and Aerith in the present just to have them say, wow, so what happened next? Wow, so what happened next? Was unnecessary at best and at worst completely absurd. Oh my goodness, we are on the same page here, Steven.
Yeah. So he says, I think the clearest example of this is Zangen's first exercise class in Nibelheim. After an unbelievably long description of the class, almost 6 full pages, we cut back to the present where Tifa notices that Aerith has been mimicking the exercises and wants to hear about other classes so she could really get it down. I'm sorry, Tifa was actually describing every step in Zangen's exercise class from 7 years ago? With enough detail that Aerith could follow along and learn the routine.
Like, are they supposed to be walking?
Yeah. What would be the point of telling a story like that? I tell long-winded stories too, but this is insane. On a much more positive note, I actually love
You're right, Joyce, because that means that they were talking to each other in this much detail.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It's like too much. They should have just wrote the book and not had any of that other stuff and just been like
100%. But
here's the book.
Again, I'm telling you, I think the reason they did this was to show that Tifa and Aerith are friends.
I never felt like they weren't friends. I just thought they both wanted the same dude. Which, I mean, kind of, you could
And they
see.
were kind of on the same journey together, and it makes sense that they don't know each other that well by the end of FF7 Remake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, this is what we got for it. On a much more positive note, I actually love the final story, Picturing the Past. It was refreshingly concise and told a solid story that fit well into the world of FF7. I enjoyed the detailed look at President Shinra's misguided search for the Promised Land, and Lonnie's clumsy reunion with Aerith was satisfying and emotional. After slogging through the main 2 series, this one unexpectedly resonated with me. I'll remember it.
Oh, wow, because I barely remembered it at all, and I read it.
Yeah.
2 hours ago.
Yeah. It's been at least a few weeks for me. So.
I'm glad you liked it. Some extra little notes. Bad character names. There's a slum goon named There's a slum goon named Butch and a soldier named Glenn, who are completely different people from the slum goon named Butch and a soldier named Glenn in the games. Glenn with 2 N's.
Yeah.
Naming the mayor Xander when he's mainly a foil to Zangen was also very clumsy. I like the emphasis on Shinra recruiting child soldiers. In the original game, it was pretty weird to think about the ages of Cloud, Sang, etc. In flashbacks, it felt like an anime cliche. I like that the book touched on this, explained it from Shinra's perspective, and showed other kids joining Shinra at the same vulnerable age. I would like to say, Steven, I was in a little village in Mexico where the cartel was circling us every few minutes. The ages of the kids in the back of the truck with the guns, no older than 20. Some looked like they were like 15. So
no threat whatsoever. Like, you're like,
I think a 16-year-old with a AK-47, I would call that a threat.
Any younger than that, and you're like, well, maybe.
Yeah, he's just going to accidentally shoot me. But a 16-year-old, I think, might not have the emotional maturity to think about their actions when it comes to certain things, and that's exactly the time when you want to have a child soldier who has no other hope in the world except for moving up in the ranks of the Sinaloa cartel. So, I don't know, Steven. I don't know. I think that is, like, has been historically perfectly acceptable to get teenage boys recruited into war and other things that require, pushing people around and guns and all that.
Yeah. So he does pose a few questions. Did the book change your perception of Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie like it did for me? Following Tifa home after work, Jessie talking her way into Tifa's home, pretending to invite her to a birthday party, which turned out to be an illegal planetology meeting. Oh, you're all alone with no support system because your dad died? Well, if you believed in my religion, your dad wouldn't really be gone. To me, it felt predatory and distasteful.
I think it actually kind of goes with what those characters are in for in this extremist kind of planetology thing.
Yeah, all I can think about when I hear planetology is Scientology. So
yeah. Yeah, maybe there's a parallel there, but then the twist in the whole world is that, well, that's actually true.
yeah.
in this universe.
And that's where it's hard for me, because I'm like, it's real hippie, but like it is true here, so I'm just gonna have to get over it. But yeah, it did kind of seem that way. But no, I didn't really.
I could see. I thought them as more like just testing the waters and seeing if they're. I wouldn't call it predatory. It'd be like they are definitely recruiting people. If it was predatory, then they would have, I think, made more of an effort to have Tifa there with them.
Yeah, and it seemed like they were kind of like not sure about her for a while.
It seemed like they were like testing the waters with her, and once she got a little older and a little more mature, then they would let her in if she wanted. So I don't know. Yeah, in some ways for sure, but I don't know if it's 100% that way.
Yeah,
I think there's some gray in there.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't make me dislike their characters. He also says, why do you think Faz was unaffected by Elmira emptying a pistol into his chest? The gun came from Carlo, who had no reason to give her blanks or anything like that. Could this be a reference to actual FF7 battles in which Shinra MPs can riddle our heroes with machine gun bullets all day without really hurting them?
So she shoots, and I thought, maybe I read it wrong, that she missed.
Yeah, I thought that was the implication.
Yeah, because, I mean, if the sights are off on a gun, less so with, I guess a pistol is actually pretty easy to miss with. I don't know, Steven, up in Canada, if that's if you shoot guns too often, but
yeah, like
having gone shooting quite a bit, you can miss with a pistol pretty easy, even on a human-sized target. Like, yeah, if you're not carefully aiming, if you're not a person who shoots regularly and knows how to use it. Like, I had a Japanese Yoshia, who's the guy who called me Fata Joe. So Yoshia went out shooting with us, which was terrifying because that guy didn't understand gun safety at all.
Yeah,
it would like point the gun at people and you're like, no, stop, turn it on, like put it on safety and all this other stuff. And like, what are you doing? For some reason, just some people just have no concept of that. And I get it. Maybe it was because it was hammered into my skull when I was a young teenager when my dad taught me how to shoot. But
yeah,
we took him shooting, and the guy just has no sense of anything. So I have, like, with Elmira, she got the gun from someone else. She probably has never practiced shooting with it. She can blame it on the gun. I would say, yeah, the gun sights might be off or something like that, but I would probably guess she probably just missed.
Yeah, that's what I took it as.
Yeah. I don't know how much Kazushige Nojima is thinking about that, but if I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, that's what I would assume is happening there.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think it's a reference to Shinra MPs can riddle our heroes with machine gun bullets all day without really hurting them, although that is funny.
Yeah, for sure. He says at the end here, I guess this might be my last appearance in a UFF episode. Thanks for all the good times, seriously. And in the words of Noctis, what can I say? You guys are the best. Steven.
Thank you, Steven. I would love a write-in for our finale episode, which probably is the next thing we should talk about. Is there anything else about the book you want to...
If you really like Final Fantasy VII, it's probably worth your time if you just want a little bit more. And it did get me in the mood.
I mean, if you're a lore whore, for sure.
Yeah, and it did get me in the mood to play Rebirth again.
Yeah, I put on Distant Worlds music when I was doing like, I gotta go sit down and read 70 pages of this book tonight. I put on the Distant Worlds soundtracks, and I had that going while I was reading this, and that was actually kind of a nice experience. Kind of nice to get in the world of FF7 in the mood.
Yeah.
It was nice.
It's too bad it's going to be like years until we can finish it.
That's true.
But
I am considering I call it Final Fantasy February, where I liked your idea of us doing like 24-hour streams for like a week straight, where we do nothing but play Final Fantasy.
Yeah. And we see who can like finish it first.
Yeah, see who could finish all the mainline games first.
That's like, a lot, man.
That was brutal. That was brutal. And also, like, would we count 11 or would we do 10-2 as a replacement? Would we do 13-2 as a replacement for 14 and go into 15 or what?
I mean, there is a new game plus option in 14.
Or we just skip the cuts. But anyway, we are going to do one more episode.
Yep.
Which is going to be kind of a informal, maybe rundown of some of the spin-offs, maybe just reminisce a little bit, maybe go through. I don't think we'll do well, we actually haven't talked this out fully, but we spitballed a little bit about. We did an episode a while back called Finale Fantasy.
Yeah.
Where we ranked all of the Final Fantasy games that we had played. All at that time 50 games. And we have a few more to add to the list. I don't know if I could find the original document in which we ranked those.
I can look. I have the book. I have our UFF book, so I might have it.
But then we would have to add in the new games, or we do a whole new ranking. But we might do some ranking of some sort. I don't know if it'll be that in depth, but because that in that respect, like we were done with the Final Fantasy series at that point, and that was a good way to cap it off.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've now had a couple years of us doing the games that are like related to Final Fantasy and aren't necessarily Final Fantasy themselves, with some exceptions, obviously. So I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I do know that if you guys have anything to say to us about your experience listening over the years or anything like that, there is a Discord link in the description of this episode. Even if you don't use Discord, if that's kind of the way you want to do it so that we don't accidentally say your real name or something on your email, you can go into the Discord. You go to reviews and questions area in the Final Fantasy part, and then you can give us a big, I want nice big messages. Write them as long as you want, honestly. For the send-off episode, anything you guys want to ask us, anything you guys want to say about the shows or about Final Fantasy, or anything, please send those in there or to fffanatics123@gmail.com. That is fffanatics123@gmail.com. I do want to say that it's not going to be necessarily a permanent goodbye. We might come back for other things, but we might not. So it's kind of like up to us whether or not the show is on permanent hiatus or if we come back for a new... I think the most likely thing that we'll come back for is for Final Fantasy VII Remake 3. Whatever they actually... if they call it Reunion, then Final Fantasy VII Reunion would probably be the most... I would say right now I'm like 95% sure we'll do an episode there. So don't unsubscribe like from the feed or anything like that. And we have been discussing there might be a good reason to say subscribe to the feed at least for another 6 months after the second Finale Fantasy.
Yeah, Finale Fantasy 2.
Finale Fantasy 2 comes out, which I think I'm going to give you guys probably at least 3 weeks to figure that, because we got to figure out our dates when we're actually going to do the episode.
Yeah.
And when we figure that out, we'll probably put in Discord and give you guys a little bit of a warning beforehand so that you guys can give us your thoughts and everything like that.
Yeah, and let us know when you do that how much, like, if you want us to use your name or...
Yeah,
what.
that's probably be good to put in the first line of the email.
Yeah.
And then, gosh, what else? Oh, yeah. So what is going to definitely happen with this show is that it's going to be put behind. I think the extra episodes, like the weekly episodes and everything, is going to be put behind a paywall. Because even if we're not doing the show, the Libsyn fee every month costs a certain amount of money, and that's on our Patreon. Like, it explains like what's going on there.
Yeah.
And we would just like the show to stay up a little longer. So I'm probably going to use an AI tool to remaster some of the older episodes. I'll put like a new intro and maybe a new outro to just kind of explain that there are more episodes of the podcast out there. And then we're probably just going to keep the reviews up, and maybe some of the other like bigger episodes up as free content that everybody can access in the future. And then everything else will kind of be behind like a $5 paywall. So that way, every time someone does go and wants to listen to the whole series after finding us just based on the reviews, that way that feed can actually stay up for people. So
yeah, with little to no maintenance on our end.
Little to no maintenance. It's basically like money goes into a PayPal account, Libsyn charges the PayPal account, and then we basically only have to just check up on it every once in a while. We don't have to touch it.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be spending money on this show for forever. So really it's just like the people who want to go in and dive in, pay a couple bucks, and then the show stays on a little longer. So hopefully it stays on for a long time. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then it will be easier for people who wanted to read the reviews. They don't have to scroll through 400 episodes of UFF in order to find like a review on a game that they were looking at. All the reviews will be there. There'll be like 70 episodes and that's it. So
yeah.
I'm kind of excited about like that prospect. Also, that AI cleanup tool from Adobe is beautiful. And I'm going to use that on some of the early, like the first 3 episodes at least.
Nice.
And kind of clean them up, and there we go. I'm excited about that. Maybe the first episode won't sound as atrocious as it does. I had already fixed some of the audio from that, but it's still like not great.
Yeah.
So just a little warning for you guys. If you are deep into this podcast or whatever.
Yeah, get your bootleg copies.
Download them now. And I'm not sure if it'll be paywalled everywhere, just probably on the podcast feed. Maybe on YouTube, we'll see. We'll see. Me and Caleb have to figure out exactly how we're going to maintain all this over time and have copies of the episodes and all that crap.
Yeah.
Because we've worked on this so long, we have so much audio that we have to manage. So that's just another thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of space.
Never thought about, and we'll have to figure out for all of our shows. So I'll have to figure out something.
Yeah, I got most of them downloaded on the show computer, so we could just copy it over to a hard drive.
Yeah, that's for backups. But
preserves.
I'm thinking about how to make it accessible for future audiences, because the Final Fantasy series is going to stay popular probably for another 10 years at least, right?
Yeah.
So you want to have the resource of like, we beat all these games. Like someone out there beat every single, non-mobile Final Fantasy game. And you'd like to have them all kind of like available somewhere. So we're going to figure something out. We're not going to like screw you guys out immediately or anything like that. And I think you're probably pretty safe for another like 6 months after the show has had its Finale Fantasy 2 episode. But again, don't unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just saying that for you guys so I wouldn't like, when we do it, we're not triggering you or anything like that.
Yeah. It's mostly just to let it kind of ride and then we don't have to worry about it,
Yeah.
And then if we want to come back for whatever reason, we can.
Yeah.
And we'll give you more.
So don't be cross about it or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, just recognize that it does take some maintenance in order to keep it up. But anyway, I don't want to go on, radically dreaming about all these things or anything.
Yeah.
So let's
It'll be nice to see all the main lines in like chronological order too.
chronological order.
Yeah.
That would be nice. So
I'm excited to see that feed.
yeah, I'm excited to see that. Again, guys, leave your messages in the Discord description in the episode. Link in the description of the episode. fffanatics123@gmail.com. fffanatics123@gmail.com is our email. Anything else?
No, man, just let us know. Let us know when you found us. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, give us your pod story.
Yeah, man. I know there's plenty of you.
Even if we've heard it before.
Yeah, exactly. And I know for a lot of you we have. But yeah, let us know. I mean, I know we've inspired a lot of other podcasts and stuff like that. So let us know,
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about them and all that good stuff. So looking forward to hearing from you guys.
All right. Well, enjoy the book reading.
Yeah. Enjoy the Kazushige Nojima grind.